In 1981, I was working as a mudlogger on the Pellerin, an oil exploration drillship in the Sea of Labrador. By now, I'd worked on a few rigs, both on and offshore, several of which were in Canada, most were in Europe and Africa. This particular rig, though, was different. Firstly, it was spotlessly clean. Deck crews were endlessly hosing and painting. Cabin staff made beds and looked after laundry. The mess was more like a four-star restaurant with freshly cooked, well-prepared food, brought to table by trained servers. There was a dress code in the mess, no coveralls. But the final outstanding feature of this rig, for me, was the consequence of this story. As was fairly typical, I was working with people from all over the world, mostly Canadians, of course, but there were Germans, Dutch, and Americans. The captain was the only Australian, as I recall, and I was the only Brit. Cell phones and internet were not a thing yet. Despite this, communications across oilfield networks were robust. It's interesting to me that there is an unspoken, undocumented code of practice in the oil patch. It's one of mutual respect. If your face doesn't fit, then you're out. There's a line that most people just don't cross. Well, talking of crossing lines, I remember this one guy, Harry, on the Pellerin, who always seemed to be sitting on the table next to me. He was fairly short and stout and had plenty to say. You probably know the sort. Yeah. Big man, big mouth, little man, all mouth. Yeah, he had a long repertoire of very weak jokes. Occasionally they were quite nasty, and as time passed, some of these were directed my way. He'd cup his hand in my direction just to be sure that I heard him. Well, to start with, I just ignored him. He was bound to stop sooner or later. A few days passed, each with Harry's joke of the day. Where did this guy dig all his material up? He really was starting to get up my nose. And then one lunchtime he started with, "Have you heard the one about the Queen Mother's pubic hairs in a matchbox?" Again smirking at me. Oh no, I really am done with this. I mused that I could take Harry to one side and maybe have a little chat. No, I quickly discounted that. Harry wasn't a listener. Well, they do say that you should begin with the end in mind. Problem was, I had no clue what the end was going to look like. A few more options started ploughing through my mind. I could foresee two possible outcomes. This could either end badly, or it could end spectacularly badly. Now I'm torn. I really didn't want this to become a career-limiting move. I looked at him hard, and without averting my stare, and without further thought, I slowly drew a large, squeezy bottle of mustard from the centre of the table towards me. I pointed it towards him, and with all my might drove my fist into the bottle. Anyone who knows me will tell you that I am devoid of hand-eye coordination skills. I am famed and ridiculed for it. I'm lousy at ball sports, ballroom dancing, darts, and pool. But that day, I proved to be a keen mustard player. I could not have aimed at this guy more accurately. I got him right in the middle of his face, with splatters of mustard over his hair and dripping down his chin. And as Harry started towards me, he and everyone else in the mess noticed the captain enter the room. Harry slumped back in his seat and waited for the big man to take his place at table before getting up and walking out. There was a short silence. The captain asked what the hell was going on, and for my part, well, I was just very busy eating lunch. You know, I never ran into Harry again. I guessed he'd changed his routine, never saw him at meal times. I didn't even see him around the ship. Nothing was ever said to me about it, neither did I feel the need to talk about it. It was certainly in my mind that I'd be hauled up to give an account of my actions, and would possibly be flown out on the next chopper, but it never happened. In fact, I forgot about it all pretty quickly. Until, that is, I made an unscheduled visit to Calgary. I was passing Gulf Oil on 10th Avenue, when on impulse I thought, I wonder if my mate Forbes is free for lunch. I gave my name to the receptionist and asked if she could call Forbes on the off chance that he and I could have a quick visit. A few seconds later the answer came back, sure, he'll be right down. I took a seat near the elevator, and after a few moments Forbes stepped out and greeted me with, "Hey, Mustard!" I was absolutely stunned. How on God's earth did Forbes hear about this? Calgary to Newfoundland? It's got to be over 6,000 kilometres away. I don't recall anyone on the Pellerin from Calgary. I returned his greeting with something like, "Forbes, you old bugger, how did you hear about that?" He laughed and laughed. It turns out that the captain on the Pellerin was a good friend of his. They went to college together. Other than their discussion about the crazy Brit, Forbes didn't say too much about it. There was no further mention of Harry. It did, however, begin to dawn on me just why I never saw Harry again.